What's up, gangsters? How about 10 minutes of randoms? Okay, here we go. I think I've got enough stuff for the randomizer. I have taken a break from working on my Eduard Mustang because I've gotten involved in a project to build the Hasegawa/Eduard 1/32 scale P-40N. And so I've got the fuselage halves right here. I'll talk about that in a second. Most of my work so far has been focused on removing the very simplified Hasegawa detail in the cockpit so that I can start replacing it with stuff that I like better. You know, hoses, wires, linkages, that sort of thing. So you can kind of see some of my progress there. Somebody asked me to show on video how I go about removing details. So I've done that. Made like a 20 or 25 minute video on that. This whole area right here by my fingertip was had a bunch of molded in detail. There was a bunch over here. This other side of the cockpit also had some, and I think I'm probably going to go ahead and remove some more. That gizmo right there, whatever that thing is, I don't like. Probably going to end up 3D printing something. But you can see there where I've removed some detail. So there's that. The other thing that kind of defines the Hasegawa Mustang, the Hasegawa P-40N, I think in both scales, 32nd and 48th, is that the tail is separate so that you can make either the long or the short-tailed version. I'm building the longer-tailed version, so I had to deal with gluing the rear end of it onto the rest of the fuselage. And it's not bad. I mean, Tamiya, yeah, they would have handled it. You'd have never even known this was here. They would have engineered it in a different way that didn't leave you with an unwanted panel line running right through the middle of your fuselage, because that is not a natural joint in the sheet metal on a Warhawk. So you have to fill it. And then, you know, and do a little bit of cleanup on your panel lines and your rivets. And in fact, over here on this other side, it was not lined up quite as well. And I actually had to move some of the panel lines over. And you can see where I've already rescribed those. The red in there is the old panel line. And you can see that I've successfully scribed over it and next to it. But you may be wondering, what is that red stuff? All right, so that is maybe the best part of this episode of Random. That's a new batch of Sprue goo that I've mixed up, and it's red because, as usual, I like to put some MRP lacquer in there to make it more visible. But what's different about this batch is that it's made with 100% clear Sprue, Hasegawa Sprue, as a matter of fact. Had plenty of it with the Warhawk kit. And the reason that I did that is because my normal Sprue goo is this stuff right here, which is regular Hasegawa plastic combined with Tamiya Sprue, and it works pretty well. But one thing that bugs me about it is it's always just a little bit softer than the surrounding plastic. And especially given how Hasegawa's plastic is a little bit harder than everybody else's, I really didn't want that. So I was looking for a way for it to be even more similar to the base material than my regular Sprue goo. Because when you go to punch new rivets in areas like that, things like that, sometimes when it's too soft, it's just not quite right. So because clear polystyrene is the purest form of the material, and as we all know is pretty brittle, I thought, hey, why not make some Sprue goo out of it? And so I've been experimenting with it a little bit, and I really, really like it. You can see I've got some right here, and what's popped loose from the bottom of this little aluminum weighing boat is, I mean, you can feel how brittle it is. And it doesn't take any longer to cure out than my other stuff, and unexpectedly, it seems to not have the tendency to give me any pinholes from little bubbles. I don't know why that would be, but I'm grateful for it, because there's always a few little pinholes. But I think you can see this has done a really nice job of letting me fill that joint and sand it down very easily without too much surface disruption. I am going to have to redo some of those rivets because they're just too far from the new panel line in a few places, so I've filled those in and I'm just waiting for that to cure out. I'll probably redo those tomorrow, but I really like it. I think it's going to be my new go-to sprue goo, and I'll continue to use the green stuff, especially for situations like this, where I wanted to, kind of beef up that joint in there a little bit. I'm not worried about it being hard or soft. I just want it to be stronger. So I like that. I think that's a successful experiment. Now, in other materials experiments, which are some of my favorite things to do, you guys know that, there's been a couple of guys who I respect a lot who have said unequivocally that LP11, which is this wonderful, wonderful metallic silver lacquer from Tamiya, is better when you use Mr. Rapid Thinner than when you use Mr. Leveling Thinner. All right? Now, this has baffled me because this, as far as I know, is intended to be gloss silver paint. Not ever really intended to be a metallic impersonator. And so when I want a lacquer to lay out smoother and shinier, well, the natural thing is to use Mr. Leveling Thinner. The leveling part being the first clue, because it's a slow lacquer thinner. It lets the paint lay there for just a little bit longer, and for all the particles to flow and blend and give you that nice, beautiful, smooth finish. So for people to claim that it's better with Mr. Rapid Thinner really baffled me. And there were some, a couple of these guys were like, yeah, it just looks more metallic. I'm like, okay, well, if you want it to look more metallic, all right, that's fine. But I don't really even think of LP11 as being for that specific purpose. So, but nonetheless, I wanted to see what the hullabaloo was about, so I sacrificed some of my precious LP11 in the name of finding out for myself, and I will say unequivocally that that's horseshit. Yeah, I don't think it's better. In fact, I think most people would be challenged to even tell the difference. All right, now you may be able to here on camera when I hold them next to each other, because for whatever reason, there's a tonal difference. Okay, these are both sprayed over Mr. Surfacer 1500 that's been sanded down to about 800 grit, so about an equivalent level of smoothness. But for whatever reason, the tone is slightly different. Or maybe it's that it's a little bit darker, all right? This one here looks a little grayer and darker, which to me is the way it's supposed to look. This is supposed to look a lot like DuPont silver lacquer or RAF high-speed silver. And it does a really nice job of that, and you can see the level of reflectivity. You can see that is tight and smooth. It's hard enough with any paint to really show that on camera, but even harder with a metallic like this. But you can kind of see it's pretty good, pretty smooth. All right, this is the tank from my Honda Monkey, and this is LP11 thinned 50/50 with Mr. Leveling Thinner. All right, this wing right here on this mule is thinned 50/50 with Mr. Rapid Thinner, and it looks almost as slick and shiny, maybe exactly as slick and shiny. Maybe even a little bit more reflective. I don't know. I hesitate to say that because the shape of the surface is different. This is more of a flat surface, but at any rate, it's really hard to tell the difference. There's that slight tonality difference, but and I don't know, really how to associate that with the paint chemistry itself, but otherwise, I honestly can't say that one is better than the other. I'm going to continue to use it with Mr. Leveling Thinner because when I'm sitting here looking at them in person, I prefer the look, as subtle as the difference is, of that one as opposed to the one with Mr. Rapid Thinner. But either way, it's still pretty slick. And so that means this is not in any way, shape, or form a good representative of any kind of metal that I know of. The tonality looks almost exactly like rough cast aluminum or bead blasted aluminum, neither of which are glossy. So you've got a disconnect there. So I just, that's kind of my conclusion from that. Speaking of Mustangs and the Eduard Mustang, so if you're following that at all, you know that the exhaust stubs in my kit were not good, and they very quickly responded to my email and sent me some replacements. You can see here, maybe, if I can figure out where they're at, what the issue is. They're blown out there, some of them at the tip. You can really see it on some of those because of a misalignment of the pin inside the mold. You can really see it on this on that one as well. Anyway, the first set of replacements that they sent me were Spitfire sprues. So I assume somebody got my box of Mustang exhausts. But they sent me 3 sets, and they are definitely better. Not perfect, but certainly better. Unfortunately, I think I have to use those if I have shrouded exhausts, which I do on the one that I'm building. So these aren't exactly perfect, but I think I'll get there. I think these are going to be plenty good enough. So mad props to Eduard for sending them to me twice and being super cool about it. I think, even though sometimes I'm a little hard on Eduard for, some of their resin stuff not fitting that well, and I have not just universally praised this Mustang kit. I think they're doing good stuff. So happy about that. Here's the other thing I've got going on. I forgot to mention that with the Warhawk. The seat that you can see is pretty terrible. That is classic Hasegawa lack of detail right there. So I decided to create my own using Fusion 360, and that was a bit of a CAD adventure. And there is one right there I think is quite an improvement. This isn't even one of the better samples, but I'm super stoked with the way it came out. The significant thing about this is that these are the first samples off of one of my friend's new Frozen Sonic Mini 4K, which, without getting into all of the technical details of 3D printing, is the latest and greatest generation of the hobby level 3D printers in the $300 price range. And the fact that it's 4K just speaks to the resolution being twice as good or close to it as the current state of the art was a couple of months ago. And yeah, pretty impressive. Again, this is a $300 3D printer, and I just, just an astonishing level of detail. Really, really good. Okay, a couple of tool things real quick. We had some conversation recently in SMCG about the Iwata toolkit, which is really nice, but it's like $80. I've never bought one because part of the reason it's so spendy is because it has the special screwdrivers for removing the packing seals from an Iwata airbrush, which is something that I almost never do. So, if, for the rare occasions that I do, I just suffer with a regular old screwdriver. But I do have the nozzle wrench, which is really, really handy. Much better than using that silly thing right there. But one of the other things in that toolkit that I always wanted was the soft jaw pliers, because they're really handy for unscrewing the paint cup. If it's a little tight, if it's glued itself on there with paint or something, because obviously the paint cup is an odd shape and you don't want to grab it with regular pliers. So I got these Tsunoda soft jaw pliers off of Amazon for a total of like $12, and they're fantastic. They work great. And the thing that I really like about these is that they have a spring return. So with my lobster hands, that's really nice, because opening and closing traditional pliers is a little bit of a challenge for me. So I really, really like these, and they will work great for those occasions when I need to take apart something with my airbrush and can't use a wrench. Another tool, Patrick Perales sent me some neat knives that I'm going to be checking out. I'm not really sure what the story on these is. They look cool. They are, precision knives made in Germany, 100%. So that automatically means that they're going to be good knives, right? At least that's the story. Anyway, I haven't even gotten them out of the package yet, as you can see. So I am going to be using these and seeing what I think of them, and I'll talk about them, and we'll see how they shake out. They are going to be available, or maybe already are available, through Andy's Hobby Headquarters, which Patrick is a distributor for and has an interest in. So there you go. Those things are pretty cool, and we'll see how they actually work. All right, I'm pretty sure that is well over 10 minutes, so time to go. Bye.